Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the morning grind. How are you doing today? I hope that it is a good morning for you. I was struggling to get started today because I was fired up after last night's talk last night. Oh, Brett is talking about that right here. Brett says, good morning. Great table talk last night. Yes, it was an absolutely fantastic table talk last night. I was fired up after it, and then I didn't actually get to sleep until like 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's one of the problems with the late night table talks. I said this kind of stuff gives me energy and things like that, and especially those kinds of conversations. Actually, yesterday, Brianna and I had our weekly meeting that started at 2, and we were talking about things, but I don't think that we actually stopped our weekly meeting until after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because we got started actually doing the pre-conversation for that conversation, trying to lay things out and also coming up with other topics to discuss about stories and storytelling and all of that. So we were on a roll. And then I did a few things yesterday. I'm way behind on things like going through the Discord server, and I've got email I got to respond to. So I'm way behind because of that. And then about an hour before, or a little bit more than an hour before that started, I got into preparing other notes and things like that for that table talk, and then the table talk went long. So yesterday was all about that. So I highly recommend that you watch last night's table talk on replay. Both Cameron Pasha and Brianna De Silva were there, so that was kind of like the power table talk right there. We were talking about the structure of the fall. We were trying to talk about the fall, and we're talking about negative character arcs. And I still think there is some work to do on that. And in fact, we're going to have, I want to talk to Doug more about that, because Doug had done this fantastic job on the Heroine's Labyrinth. And he's going to come back. I got to email him, but he's going to come back maybe on the 18th. And Brianna and I are, because he was kind of giving out his theory, last Tuesday or Thursday or whatever it was last week. And then Brianna watched, she's got all kinds of notes on that. So he's going to come back. I'd really love to be able to come up with the structure of the fall. I think there's more work to be done, like he came up with the Heroine's Journey structure. But the terminological clarifications sometimes have been so important in order to actually have a coherent discussion. So I highly recommend that you watch last night's table talk. Hey, Toadstool Hollow and Zero the Blade, one of our channel members. Thank you so much. Oh, hey, remember, actually, by the way, channel members, if you want to take $7.99 off of a mug this month, I've got a few mugs left. All of the mugs, there is a discount code in the community tab of this Discord, of this YouTube channel, that's got a members only post, and it's got a discount code for mugs. So this month, you just take your channel membership right off one of the mugs, whether you're talking about Cultist Coffee. They're spoofs of the Starbucks logo, Cultist Coffee and Witch's Brew. I've got to make up some new morning messages on that. That's one thing that I didn't get to yesterday. Lots of stuff to do because of that. So Brett finished. We talked about Brett. Good morning, Brett. Micah is here. Good morning. Yes, please do remember to hit the thumbs up button. Sable Phoenix is here, as so is Andrew. Good morning. Zero Theory is here. Carl Makes Stuff. Good morning. Good morning. Micah says, enjoyed listening to last night's talk during my overnight shift. I highly recommend it. Actually, I'm hoping that Cameron will be willing to come back more regularly. I mean, I'm sure he's willing to come back, but more regularly, because I think there's a lot more stuff. Brianna and I have lots of topics. The story stuff is so important from what she and I are doing. We've got a lot of topics to cover, and I really appreciate Cameron's insight. I mean, I think Cameron's insight on this is fantastic. Now, on a lot of YouTube channels, when he appears on the YouTube channels, he talks about the state of Hollywood, and he has a lot of insider knowledge. I'm part of his Patreon, and he posts he's got some really inside sources inside Lucasfilm and stuff like that. And so on a lot of channels, he will talk about the status of like Lucasfilm or Disney or things like that, and the status of Hollywood in general. And those are great topics, absolutely, certainly, but that I really like over here on this channel. We actually talk about the creative side of things. And so I think that's also something that he doesn't get to do a whole lot because he's doing the Hollywood insider news kind of route on a lot of other channels. So I think he enjoys it. Hopefully he will. So hopefully we could make that something more regular, or, who knows, maybe more table talks. And I'm still, by the way, I know we're getting started here. I'm still, by the way, trying to get my digital assets ready to start doing the table talk, the board gaming shows over here and some role playing, because I've gotten behind on all of that. So that's still on my list of big rocks I'm trying to do. I got to make some, that's actually right after I finish making up some more morning messages for this month. So, oh, hey, Vision. Good morning, Vision. Sable Phoenix says, I was really intrigued by some of the stuff he was saying about his Islamic beliefs and being the sort of shock jock, culturally speaking. Now, hopefully, if you want to hear more, like I had a conversation previous with him. Yes, of course, he's a practicing Muslim as well. So he brings this very different perspective as well to a whole bunch of things. I talked to him about the nature of good and evil in storytelling. And I thought that was a fantastic conversation. So if you look up Table Talk, like don't quote me on the number, but it's like number 9 or something. There's a playlist on this channel for Table Talk. And so if you go down, you'll see another Table Talk with Cameron where we're discussing good and evil. And so he we had a great conversation on that. So I talked to him on that side of the perspective. I want to have some other people on to talk about good and evil and storytelling, but I'm not on the inside with a whole bunch of different YouTubers. So I do what I can. You don't always get invitations, or when you send out an invite, well, first of all, you're often not responded to, which is perfectly fine. I mean, most people get more things than they can respond to. But I want to pursue that topic more. I think there are other people who would be fun to have. Okay, so what was I saying? That okay, so I'm also still working on. I've still got to get my digital assets together for doing the role-playing shows and dinner and a board game shows, and then we'll be able to do those, because that's the big sticking point right now. It used to be like physically painting the miniatures, and we were doing Crafter's Corner, and then okay, those got done. So, but now I didn't plan on the digital part of that taking so long or not getting done. So now I'm trying to work on that. So anyway, that's where all of that stands. Today is World Building Wednesday. So I was thinking that I was coming very close to having the world primer for Tales of Rabivania done. And I am pretty close, but I spent a lot of time on it last week to try to wrap things up. Then I realized, okay, I'm actually not wrapping things up. It's getting closer, but it's still not quite right. And one major problem is that I have way too many words now. I'm about to show you. So if we're talking about word counts and trying to put these into a book of a certain length, I accidentally blew past my word count. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at here. We're taking a look at, where are my notes for what we're supposed to talk about today? I had notes. Okay, so we're going to pull up the character, the Tales of Rabivania World Primer, primarily taking a look at character classes, because what I've been doing is trying to put in the rules for 5th edition and where we are with that. What I'm thinking about as far as a problem with a lot of this is going. And then I also want to take a look at world stats. I would love to, we need to, like, at least once a month, like, take a look at the statistics for how the worlds are growing and how we are doing as far as world building and getting the word out about worlds and things like that. So I think that there'll probably be time for that today, because that should be like maybe the first Wednesday of every month or something like that, which this would be, in order to keep track of are we being successful at all with growing the worlds that we are trying to get there. Because I think that's one of my primary values. I think, could be wrong about that, could be completely wrong about that, but I think that's one of my primary values, what I'm trying to do over here, that could potentially get some traction. So we will see. But in order to figure out if we're getting traction, we have to know where we are, and we have to be able to track it. So we will see. Micah says, I especially loved hearing about the alternate perspective of the Pharaoh and Moses, as well as the inspirations from elements of the fall from his faith, as I've never heard that before. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before. I've heard him talk about Moses before. And actually, the story of Moses was on Brianna and my list to talk about. I don't know where this list went. It was up here on my computer a moment ago. But she and I have talked about different stories to talk about. And Brianna and I are very interested in different biblical stories. And so on the list of stories to go through and to analyze, we had put the story of King David. We had put Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors. I love Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors. So does Brianna, so we can go over that. Brianna wants to talk about Moses, and Cameron had specifically recommended that I make specific study of the story of Moses in order to write the tale of Clovis, because Cameron has read the 80%. I told that I wrote about 80% or 75%, someplace in there, 70 to 80% of the book about Clovis, the rabbit like no other who slew Enorda, and that's their mythical hero who brought them fire. Well, last year I wrote about 70% of that story, and then, it would be novel length. And I sent it to Cameron, and Cameron read it, and Cameron was like, hey, you can't send this out yet. This is not ready. And then, but he said, you need to write a different kind of story anyway right now, which is, I went, all right. So we moved forward to the new timeline. I've been trying to work on that as far as the script goes. But for that story in Rabivania, he was like, one of the stories you need to read before you try to rewrite your mythology here is Moses. So Moses was on that list for that reason. Brianna wants to study it, and so I think it would also be great to have Cameron come back when we make a study of Moses. I think that would be great because he does have a great perspective. And Samson's another one that I want to study. A long time ago, I was trying to write a story about Samson, but then that was one of the times I experienced a major hard drive crash and I lost it all. But I do like the story of Samson. Speaking of which, okay, so I said that one thing we need to do is there were a lot of comments last night. Of course, there was the conversation was just going, but I was watching some of y'all's comments going by in the chat, and so maybe Friday, give me a little bit of time to digest and think about what was going on in that. But then maybe for Table Talk, I think we need to broaden our topics here. Excuse me, on Morning Grind. I think we need to broaden the Morning Grind. We've been extremely RPG heavy, which that's fine. There's still some other things I want to talk about as far as RPGs go, but I think we should actually try to broaden our topics here on the Morning Grind a little bit, become a little bit more general and talk about other things in the Geekverse. And one of those things we can do maybe Friday. Tomorrow we may look at Enchantress. That's one of the games that I created. We looked at War of Kings. We may look at Enchantress tomorrow. But then on Friday, do a digestion of last night's Table Talk and go through some of the comments. We can take new comments and whatever else if people are catching up on replay, but then also the comments that were put, because I think there were a lot of great observations and things like that were also coming in. So I want to talk about those. So I think actually like maybe Friday doing that would be a great idea. So, lots of stuff going on. Hey, let's breathe and sip here. Let's breathe and sip. So, I got my coffee this morning. Not coffee this morning. This is actually the Mountain Dew Zero. But, as you can see, it's cold. But I got my drink this morning, and hopefully you've got your favorite drink. Let's breathe and sip 2 deep breaths, and then deep breaths, complete exhales, and then let's all take a sip of our favorite beverage this morning. Very good. Very good. All right. Let me bring up the world primer here. And like I said, I think we're getting pretty close. Now, one thing that is not getting close is art here. But I was like, all right, the text, though, I was hoping that it was close to, but maybe by the end of the week or two, a week and a half, something like that, I want to be able to have this to completely read through, go, okay, that's done, completely read through it. After I say, okay, this is done, to make sure that it makes sense as far as the material goes, and then put it aside for about 2 weeks while I work on some of the art and things like that, and then come back and read through it again, and then maybe it'd be ready for layout. So we're getting close. But what needed to go in was basically the 5e stats. And next time I think I do this, I won't write the whole thing, because I wrote the whole thing and then was going to come back and put in the RPG stats. So I might not do that next time for whichever world primer we do next, and try to instead write the rules sort of at the same time. But at any rate, okay, so there was discussion in the Discord server, and I've been behind on messages in the Discord server. That's one thing I've got to catch up on. But like, okay, here's our 5e rabbit. And Trey was talking about, now how can we add some type of disadvantage to the rabbits? And I think that's a great question. We talked about loud noises or something like that. But I also want to be sure that we are thinking about the particular rule system that we're using, because I had thought a long time ago, what I should do is try to create these as accurately as I possibly can, biologically, using the GURPS rules or something like that, and then extract from the GURPS rules to all these other systems that we might choose to do a world primer for. But, the philosophy of, for instance, in this case, I think it makes perfect sense to talk about species traits, because these are different species. But, the philosophy, especially in 5e, and so if we're talking about something that potentially 5e players might see and go, oh, hey, wait a minute, maybe we ought to try this out. It's one thing 5e really isn't doing anymore, is doing anything negative about any type of racial / ancestry / species kind of trait. So in this case, I didn't put that in, so I haven't done that yet. Maybe we should, but nonetheless, I got like your dexterity score increases by 2 and your wisdom score increases by 1. So going by the situation with we're going by standard medium-sized creatures, but this is, relative to each other because we've got a section on scaling sizes, weights, and distances. Just consider them basically medium, walking speed 30 feet. That way you're not trying to alter a whole bunch of 5th edition rules. And plus, in this world primer, there is no time to be trying to talk about altering 5th edition rules anyway. There's not enough words for that. You have advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing. Seems like people would expect rabbits to be good at hearing. Always ready. Your quick reflexes give you advantage on initiative rolls. And then long jump. As an action, you may make a long jump up to 20 feet and a high jump up to 10 feet. Now remember, that's Rabivanian feet, even if you do not have a running start. And then burrower. You have a proficiency in athletic skill when making checks to dig, tunnel, or excavate. You can also burrow through loose soil at a rate of 5 Rabivanian feet per round. I believe that it's the case that in nature, it is actually the female rabbits that dig their burrows. And so I think that would be a funny thing to add into the story, that it's actually the female workers who are kind of like the construction workers, that they're the ones who dig the burrows inside the warrens or something like that to raise their family in. Zero Theory says, is it the idea that most PCs will be a rabbit? Yes, it is. In the beginning, because I don't have room for anything else in a world primer. So this is only supposed to be, if you were coming in, whatever, sitting right over here. My theory was that since I don't have any idea which one of my worlds will actually be most interesting to people, that rather than try to write something like this gigantic book over here, Low Fantasy Gaming, right out of the gate, because all of this takes so long. Well, and this is a huge effort. So instead of trying to write a gigantic book like that for all looks like maybe 4 of my worlds, I should do something much smaller that's kind of modeled off of this book right here that Evil Hat did for Fate Accelerated. This is a 6x9 book that is 48 pages long. So I decided, well, why don't I make a book like this one of my products? And so this is supposed to be a book like this. And that means that one of the things that has to go is trying to do multiple species for the player characters. Now, in an expanded book, we can do more. But in the beginning here, I just have enough room to basically do a rabbit species with different professions. Now, in an expanded book, we could talk about the mice becoming player characters, well, the rats, even the raccoons, the weasels, the squirrels, we could do that. But we just don't have the word count right here. Zero Theory says, just putting in my mechanic brain in, what do you think about using the rabbits as a human analog? The way to think of it is that when a species gets +2 dex, that's to contrast it against humans. Well, that's one thing that could be done. I had brought that up. Right. To continue. Yeah. Zero Theory says, if your world has no humans, which it does not, you're not running into humans in this. The rabbits could be this baseline, then every other species stats differentiate that. That is originally the way that I was going to go. But when I was talking about that on the GURPS forum, somebody brought up the point that, well, now wait a minute. Like, for instance, if you're actually trying to make the rabbit the baseline, then that means that like for instance, let's just take jumping, for instance. If you're trying, especially in a system like GURPS, you're trying to be real simulationist about the jumping, about all aspects of this. If rabbit is the baseline, then everybody can jump like that. And then therefore, like mice and the raccoons and stuff like that would need to have stats that give them disadvantages to make sure that they can't jump, since my baseline is rabbit. And so somebody actually said, why don't you make the baseline? So I haven't exactly done this, but I think it's an interesting idea that why don't you make the baseline the mouse? Make the baseline the mouse, because if that's the mouse is basically your most average or ordinary, then you can say, hey, the rabbits can jump further. And you don't have to give everybody a penalty for all the stuff that the rabbits are good at. So So that's why I've done it this way. So Zero Zero right there says always good to see what people like and then expand off that. Right. That is my philosophy. So so that's why I did that rather than saying, hey, I'm a rabbit. And also I kind of think that if there was nothing here on the rabbit species list, if you pick up, like if you're at a con or something, well, I mean, this would be available digitally too, but especially if you're like sitting there and there's this physical book sitting someplace and you go, oh, whoa, it's got, the rabbit knights and something like that on it. And then you open it up and that playing a rabbit is no different from a human, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed, I think. So if you pick up something like this because you're thinking about playing it, I think you would want to differentiate, to have some type of species advantages to being a rabbit. That's my philosophy. That's the philosophy I've been proceeding under here. Okay, so now last time, one thing we just started talking about the professions last time. Professions or classes, whatever we want to call it. Oh, and actually, we probably should call it classes because this is specifically for 5th edition. So this is our character classes. That I think that it would be a good idea to have this tree going on where if you start as a squire, like, does it make sense to have a level 1 knight? Maybe it doesn't, like, because you would start your adventure as a squire. We want to talk about the relationship between backgrounds and other characters, because I was thinking that I'd really like to see a structure kind of like is used in Hackmaster, where like, of course, that's a traditional fantasy, so that's got paladins, but you can't start as a first level paladin. If you want to be a paladin, you got to start as a fighter, you got to become a knight, and then you got to become a paladin. And I really like that. And so I had started to kind of work with that last week, but I realized I got to reject that. That's too much for the purposes of this world primer to try to adjust 5th edition rules. And actually, I think that it could be the case that you could do like just a book like this specifically about trying to chain together character classes like that, to go through, adjusting backgrounds and then making something like a squire class. And that, you can only go so high in squire class because by the time you reach a 3rd or 4th level squire, you're expected to become knighted. And then then you go over to the knight, or if you don't get knighted, then you got to move over to the fighter class and things like that and come up with a really neat chain like that. I think that would be really neat, except for in this right here, there is no space for that. So I was like, oh my God, there's so much to say about this and I'm running out of room. So the purposes of this world primer anyway is just to get you started playing. So if it's just to get you started playing, then why not have just, okay, here is the knight. Let's just go with the knight. And I was like, that actually makes sense. So I kind of like what I've come up with for the knight. Zero Theory says, I see that. Yeah, maybe just in stats only, while rabbits do get some species-specific abilities like the jump. Well, now that could be. So you're talking about, here you're distinguishing between the actual ability scores. And the special abilities. Now, actually, that's an interesting one. To just not give them the +2 dex or the +1 wisdom. Just don't give them that. Okay, I'll think about that. Yes, so Sable Phoenix says, low like Maul's Ritter. So mouse as a baseline makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm drifting toward then. Okay, so I kind of like this knight class. So assuming then that we're going to go level 1 knight. And we can change that in an expanded book. Like one thing I was thinking that like later, if we just decide to come up with, hey, let's come up with some rules that actually chain together the character classes, that could be imported into a larger book later. So, okay, so knight class D10, primary ability strength, saving throw proficiency, strength, constitution, armor proficiency, all armor, all shields, weapon proficiency, simple weapons, martial weapons, skill proficiencies, choose any 2 from animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, or survival. Like I said, I decided that the best thing to do here is just kind of work within 5th edition and not try to fight it, because like I would think that some of these things, like in order to be a knight, you should probably basically have animal handling because you've got to be a mounted warrior. But on the other hand, in 5th edition, just because you don't have a skill doesn't mean you can't do it. because it's not a skill-based game. People play it as skill-based games, but it's actually supposed to be an ability-based game. You roll for abilities and then modify that by a skill if you happen to have it. So just because a knight doesn't have animal handling doesn't mean that they can't ride. So just like I said, since this is right here, the 5th edition rules, we'll do other rules later, but if this is 5th edition, then just embrace it. So choose 2 from animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, or survival. Equipment. Arming sword, warhammer, excuse me, or hand axe. Spear or lance, a mail hauberk, a war fox with riding gear. So I kind of just said, okay, if you're going to play a knight, you need to start off with your minimum kind of knightly gear. Because as we said, that having some minimum level of equipment is part of being a knight. It doesn't make you a knight, but that you're kind of expected to have some minimum level of gear, a sword, a lance, a shield, a hauberk, and a war fox in order to be able to fulfill your role as Rabivanian cavalry. The thing about anthro animals like this is you're going to run into huge size differences. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe. It depends on how realistic you're trying to get. Like I just said that the mice are probably going to be small. But one of the if you were animating this, and it may drift away from this side of things, but originally, I would say if you were animating this, then one of the ways that you would animate it would be a lot like Disney's Robin Hood. So in that one, you've got a bunch of different animals, but you don't really get into that. But I do wonder, because you've got more different types of animals than I have in Rabivania with the badgers and everything like that. But they're all about the same size, so you could animate it like that. On the other hand, maybe I don't like with the art style drifting towards something that's more realistic, like has been used for the thumbnails for this series recently. Maybe that changes. Like cats were kind of like dragons in Malzritter. Years and years and years ago, when I was first writing this, there was a kingdom of cats, but I have not brought in the cats yet, because like how to do them, I haven't decided yet. If mouse is baseline, then tiny creatures are going to be like ants, whereas rabbits would at least be large creatures, if not huge. But I think the best way to do it is to just say that the rabbits are kind of like most creatures are medium creatures, but then the mouse, let's make the mouse small. So are they intended to be different sizes like that? Yeah, they're not. Well, they're not intended to be humanoid size, because like I do want them to be small. They take themselves seriously, but like if you were animating it or you were seeing it visually, then I would want the things they interact with in the world, you to realize that they're small. Like leaves or whatever, or an apple or something like that. So if they encounter something that's in the real world, you'd realize that, okay, this is actually small. But for the purposes of especially this kind of world primer, if all you're going to be encountering is animals that are roughly your size, if they're anthropomorphic, then probably it's enough to just sort of go by that fast and say medium-sized. I think, especially to get you playing fast. The Nose Plays. Hey, The Nose Plays. I was actually thinking about you the other day. Glad to see you. Good to see you here. The Nose Plays is here. It says, hey, man, what if you used a class system based on primary stats, kind of like White Hack? You have a strong class, a deft class, etc., and then each can specialize in a job or subclass like knights. I was looking at White Hack too. I was like, the other day I had that open. What's the my thinking here is what's the purpose here? Because and in fact, I'm running into this problem when we go to other classes other than knights, because I'm like, all right, I want to make this an easy way to get started playing, but I also want to make it something that people that's intuitive and easy for people to get started playing with, but that also that represents the world well. And that's not necessarily 5th edition, especially when it comes to spell casting. Spell casting and magic is always a thing. So I think you could rewrite it. Like I said, ideally, I was thinking that you could have the Rabivania world primer where the lore of the world is the same, but then have a couple of different rule sets. So if you play 5th edition or you play Pathfinder, Pathfinder is another one that's obvious to go and try to adapt this to, and then Fated Edge, the one I would want to write. But it's got to. I don't know. I don't want to create too many different rule systems that are new. Like maybe one new rule system. And the objective with Fated Edge was to try to come up with something that would do both Rabivania and Theophany. Zero Theories, I can see rabbit is the equivalent of human-sized, badger, orc-sized, mouse, gnome-sized. Yeah, something like that. Right, yeah. Something like that. Or a raccoon kind of orc size. Yeah. So, right. That's kind of it. So in this case, animal handling will be more about riding and also monsters and berserk animals, or maybe some bonus, Vladimir is saying, or maybe some bonus to charisma with some animals, as all species are animals. So I'm curious. Yeah, I'm thinking there that so not every animal in this is anthropomorphic. Not every kind of creature speaks. I only have a limited number, and I haven't necessarily defined that completely, but my expectation is that you can run across other animals in here that you can't speak to. So that'd be animal handling, but especially with animal handling here, I was thinking of that in terms of handling their foxes. So they ride war foxes. The rabbit knights ride war foxes. So, the handling your foxes, taking care of your foxes, all of that, squires, grooming them and things like that, that would be something like animal handling, because you've got to know how to ride. And the foxes do not speak. The foxes don't speak. They've never been able to teach the foxes to speak. So actually, I think that it would be fun if the foxes are intelligent. So the foxes have reasonable intelligence. They're more intelligent than like a horse would be for a knight. And I actually think it would be funny, again, if you were animated and you were seeing it visually, that the knights will be doing whatever and the foxes are around. And the foxes don't speak, but they clearly understand like what's going on, around them, at least to some kind of degree. And they could, nod their head or something like that. So they're, and I actually thought it would be funny that if some of the squires noticed that the foxes are more self-aware, but that the knights are kind of oblivious to that fact that the foxes are self-aware, or more self-aware. And you could tell your fox, I think some of them, to go and do something like that, like you might do with a dog. Hey, oh my God, go over there, stay there, whatever it is, like more so than you would do with a horse. Vladimir says, yeah, I would say mouse, small, rabbit, fox, weasel, medium, wolf, bear. Yeah, that would be huge, gigantic, something like that. Yeah. The nose play says, it seems to me that all classes basically use a primary anyway as their major defining characteristic. The flavor and the details all feel subclassy. I think that's a fine way to do it. I don't. I like that aspect of Black Hack, and actually even from some of the other systems, or even Unearthed Arcana from 3rd edition that basically does that. I mean, there's several different ones that say, listen, we've got what you're talking about. We've got some kind of magic user, we've got some type of quick guy, and we got some type of strong guy. And those are our main archetypes. And everything from beyond that is a subclass of that. I don't think that's a bad way to go about doing things. Nathaniel says, good morning, Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, what if you added the concept of a thief and used the growth of income as counterpart to gear and progression? Well, no, that's all. The thief is already in there. So we talked about that when we actually talk about the nobility and stuff like that, and knights, and becoming enfeoffed like that is a major part of becoming a knight. So we do talk about that. You're talking about the gear up here. This is your minimum level of gear when you're knighted. And we talked about that if you're about to get knighted and you don't, like, one of the things you should do as a squire is to try to acquire your basic hand weapon, a spear or a lance, a shield, a mail hauberk, and a war fox. But if you don't have them, then one of the things you probably get is gifts. People realize, okay, this guy's ready to be knighted, but he's short on some of his gear. You probably get gifts. Cool. So monsters will be also animals in many cases. Right. Yes, exactly. No problem, Nathaniel. Great to see you. Okay, so like I said, knight I was actually most happy with. And I only went to level 5 too. Like in this world primer, there's only enough time to go to level 5. But that seems to be also something that happens a lot in basic intro boxes and things like that you just go to level 5. So I said, all right, let's just go to level 5. So level 1, fighting style. You adopt a particular style of fighting as your specialty. Choose one of the following options. You cannot take a fighting style more than once, even if you later get to choose again. Mounted combatant. When you are mounted, not incapacitated, and wielding a sword, flail, axe, flail, warhammer, or weapon with similar properties, you have advantage on melee attack rolls against unmounted creatures smaller than your mount. And so that was adapted from other parts of 5th edition. So that's not jousting, but once the lance has splintered and then you go into melee combat, well, I guess if you are running somebody through with a lance, I guess I would technically say that's melee. But anyway, hand weapon. So you could be mounted with hand weapon, and in which case you would have advantages, like when you're fighting some people who are dismounted. Expert jousting. When mounted and charging with a lance or spear, you score a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. When you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack you make with a lance from horseback, you can re-roll the die. You must use the new roll, even if the new roll is a 1 or a 2. And that was kind of adapted from the great weapon fighting. Okay, I did give you great weapon fighting option. When you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack that you make with a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll, even if the roll is 1 or 2. The weapon must have a two-handed or a versatile property for you to gain this benefit. So that's the great weapon. So I said, well, you could specialize in that as a knight. That would be fine. But so I needed something like that was the equivalent of jousting, except for the number of times you're going to be able to use your expert jousting seemed to be less than you would be able to use it if you were great weapon fighting. So that's why I also added in that you crit hit on 19 or 20. And I guess we could say on any damage die from an attack, because this is a little, and that may not be strong enough. Because this you're not going to be able to use. You're only going to be able to use that basically as you ride in. Like if you get stuck in melee after that and you have to draw your hand weapon, you want to hit hard with your lance. But if you were doing great weapon fighting, you would be able to use the great weapon over and over and over again. Mounted defense. I said, if you're wearing armor, shielded and mounted, you gain +2 bonus to your AC. So there is also, just for the fighter, there's the, hey, if you can be the defensive guy and get +1 to your AC. But then again, this one is more restrictive. So if you dismount, like if you're going into a dungeon or something like that, if you're operating dismounted, you would get no bonus. But here you've got to suit up, wearing armor, shielded and mounted. And to me, that was kind of making up for the barded mount. Like if you're looking for some reason why this is, maybe this one that has to do with gear, maybe this one has to do with the whole barded mount thing, and that you are extremely well armored with your mount. So that's what I was thinking there. And then also this kind of counters or gives you some additional bonus, because we did have to go into gears. This is another reason why I blew my word count. We may not have time to look at it here. Man, okay, we've already gone for about 43 minutes. So, and there were other things to look at too, but which is fine. We're just going. But one of the issues that I realized a week and a half ago or something is that, I should probably revise the gear list, because I was trying to make this a very Age of Mail type of game. And so I thought, there should be in this world primer at least a quick rundown of what kind of gear is available. So when you're looking at heavy armor, like the heaviest armor here is full suit of mail. Now this includes chausses to defend the legs, full sleeves, a full sleeved hauberk, let's say, with mufflers for the defense of the hands. What are we talking about hands here? For the paws. Either a separate or integrated coif and some type of metal helmet, and that would be AC 16. So if you want to get up to AC 20, then you would also have to have a shield, and I added buckler in here. So if you are heavy armor and shielded, that would get you to AC 16, and then if you wanted to be an AC 20 knight, then the only way that you could do that is if you were also mounted, because there's no plate armor. We can't go up to plate armor and stuff like that. But if you wanted to be the ultimate in defended knight, you could get to AC 20 if you took if you had all of that gear and you took mounted defense as your weapon specialty. Oh, getting ice cream with the family? Well, definitely, that sounds fun. Definitely do that. Sable Phoenix says, here's somewhere you could cut the word count slightly. Just add and must use the new role. You're right. You must use the new role. Yeah, that probably was imported from 5th edition. Thank you. Or protection. When a creature you see attacks a target other than you that's within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. You must be wielding a shield. So that changes up. So there's some options that are not available to the knight, like you can't do the missile weapon thing. And I add a few that have to do with mounted combat. Second wind, I went ahead and added that one in. So it's just like the fighter kind of thing. So you get second wind as well as a knight. And then at second level, you get knightly presence. At second level, your presence on the battlefield can bolster your allies or demoralize your enemies. As an action, you can choose one of the following effects. Rally. Allies within 30 feet of you gain temporary hit points equal to plus your level plus your charisma modifier. Or intimidate. Enemies within 30 feet of you must get a wisdom saving throw, DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. Or become frightened until the end of your next turn. I'm still thinking about that one a little bit. Because there's the damsel gets that too, and so it may be that I revised that one. Level 3 nightly feature Unyielding Resolve. When you make a saving throw against being charmed, frightened, or paralyzed, you can add your proficiency bonus to this roll. 4th level, you get your ability score improvement, and at 5th level, you gain an extra attack. So on the whole, I want to think a little bit about knightly presence more, but on the whole, I think that's a pretty strong 1 to 5 level knight that would get you playing the game and that captures the feel I'm trying to capture here. Okay, now things start to go off the rails with magic. Because I was trying to, like I said, not rewrite everything. Like, this is a 5th edition game, so people are expecting to be able to cast spells. So I was trying to come up with, like, the new spell list. Like, here's the Druid. So this is a Rabivanian Druid. But I think the spell casting needs to be completely reworked. I'm not as happy with this one, the Witch or the Damsel, as I am the Knight, and it has to do with spell casting. So, Druid class, D8, Wisdom, saving throw proficiencies, intelligence and wisdom, armor proficiencies, light armor, medium armor, simple weapons. Choose 2 from animal handling, history, insight, medicine, nature, perception, religion, or survival. Simple weapon, a component pouch or druid focus, such as a staff, wand, or amulet, herbalism kit, an explorer's pack, or a scholar's pack. So I kept druidic language. So you know Druidic, the secret language of the Druids. You can speak the language and use it to leave hidden messages. You and others who know this language automatically spot such a message. Others spot the message's presence with a successful DC 15 wisdom check, but cannot decipher it without magic. But I'm just going to put, but may not necessarily be able to decipher it, to drop the reference to magic here. So at the moment, what I had done was keep spell casting and said, 2 cantrips and have 1 first level spell slots and have 2 first level spell slots. A number of spells on the D&D Druid spell list have been removed to preserve the feel of the more historically grounded Rabivania while still retaining Druidic spell casting. GMs and players should feel free to revise the spell list further to achieve the feel they desire for the game. Because here's another one of the things where you can completely rewrite it, but the word count is short. And I'm no longer even happy with this list. Like, I had gone down and said, okay, Druid spell list, cantrips would be Druid craft. Druid craft, I think is questionable. Resistance and Shillelagh. First level, animal friendship, charm person. Things like charm person actually seem like reasonable reasonable kinds of things I would expect in the story. Cure Wounds I left in because it's a 5th edition game. Like that people that game's kind of built for getting hit points back fast and magical healing and stuff like that. And you could make it whatever you wanted to from the perspective of flavor. Is it actually some type of magic wave? Probably not. Detect poison and disease. See, that seems like something a druid should be able to do, whether or not it's explicitly magical or if it's just some type of ability or skill they've got that in the context of a 5th edition game is being interpreted as magic. Fog cloud, I think that needs to go. And then I left in purify food and drink just because, well, if you can detect poison and detect disease, it seems like you should be able to do something about it. So I left that in there without trying to restructure all of 5th edition. Like I did take out things like good berry, so that there's all kinds of things that in 5th edition that prevent people from having to worry about like their supplies, right? So I took out things like that. Animal messenger seemed good. Charm person. Wait, I got charm person on 1st and 2nd level. Verify. Enhance ability, gust of wind, arguably not that one. Hold person, I can see that one. Lesser restoration, pass without trace, locate plants or animals. Again, whether that seems like something a druid should be able to do, and if it's interpreted in the context of 5th edition as magic, then okay. So then I also said dispel magic. That seems like something a druid should be able to do. Feign death, protection from energy. Let's get rid of Sleet Storm. So in the context of 5th edition, I guess that sounds reasonable. Sable Phoenix says, in my tallest campaign, good berry will require a fresh berry to be cast upon. If my druid decides to take it, at least. That helps at least some, right? Yeah. Level 2 herbalism expertise. And see, another way to do it, though, and see, I was thinking, well, what should I do? Should I actually just say, make these spell-like abilities? Just pick the ones that are kind of best. And see, arguably, actually, cure wounds. The witch is very cure woundsy. So actually, I was kind of thinking, oh, wait, charm person. That's the one I was trying to verify. So does this violate niche protection? I want to think about, because it's possible that the druid just needs to have that dropped. And leave that to somebody else in the party. So herbalism experience at 2nd level, your knowledge of plants and their uses allows you to create effective remedies and concoctions. You can spend 1 hour gathering local plants or preparing a number of poultices equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum 1. As an action, you can apply a poultice to yourself or a creature within 5 feet, healing 1d4 hit points. Poultices lose their potency after a long rest. See, okay, I like that. Actually, more than the druid. In fact, let's just go ahead and then remove cure wounds. So the druid isn't going to be curing people in the middle of combat. But that, hey, they can help you out after a rest, when you're resting. I like that. This has something to do with their herbalism and things like that. Improved spell casting, which means you would increase here. Level 3, you choose a path. At level 3, you choose a path that represents your area of expertise. So again, okay, we got Path of the Healer here or Path of Lore Master. Now, again, so here is my question again. Question. Like, who is supposed to be the healer here? I mean, the druids are supposed to be the healers in some respect, because you could go to a druid to get healed, seems like in the storyline. The local druid does that. You would go to them for some type of poultice or herb or some type of herbal concoction or things like that. But you would also go to that for the witches. Like the local witch might do that as well. In my D&D multiverse, every healing potion requires a good berry. Zero Theory says, one thing to keep in mind when using 5e classes, their spell list is part of the class balance. When you remove spells, it tilts a balance. So maybe consider something to add in place of the spells. Yep, that's true. That's absolutely true. That yep, that is true. I agree. Question: is this a problem? Niche protection here, so that's something to think about here. So, but I had Path of the Healer and Path of the Lore Master. Your choice grants you features at third level, at this level, third level, and again at fifth level. So we also have improved spell casting. You get some additional slots. Level 4 ability score improvement at level 4. You can increase one ability here. Okay, improved spell casting here. Level 5, you get a druid path ability, improved spell casting, and then ritual. Although we do need to check which spells that are left can be cast as rituals. Want to look at that. So what do we say? Path of the Healer. So okay, so it's Path of the Healer. This would make the druid the combat healer again. Maybe that's not good. Potent remedies. I do like this. That, but I think actually what we should probably do is turn this into something about them doing their poultices up here, because right now this is just about hit points. But I think that probably it would be good to say, make this about the poultices. Maybe you in there or something. That once you reach a certain level, you can also, if you can also make up a poultice that would remove somebody being poisoned, blinded, or deafened. That makes sense. Path of the Lore Master. As the follower of the Path of the Lore Master, you possess vast knowledge of history, folklore, and the natural world. Actually, this is kind of more what I think about the druids anyway. So maybe we just, for the purposes of this world primer, just say here's your druid level 1 to 5. Lore Keeper, you gain proficiency in 2 additional skills from the following list: Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion. If you already are proficient in any of these skills, you may choose another list skill from the druid's list skill instead. And then Sage Advice. As an action, you can share your wisdom and knowledge with your allies. Choose a number of creatures equal to your wisdom modifier minimum 1 within 30 feet of you. These creatures gain advantage on their next ability check or saving throw that uses intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, as long as the check or save is made before the start of your next turn. So I would say maybe we should make this last longer. In fact, this seems like, actually, to me, something that they should be doing during downtime again, to prep the rest of the hero, not necessarily downtime, but during a rest or something, to prep them, your team, in order to get this advantage the next time you're out. So actually, I think that does need to last longer. So, this might need to be removed. I hear you, Sable Phoenix. It's the attempt at balance. You can't ever have any class system because each is its own fruit. So always comparing apples to oranges. Well, let's just go with its attempt at balance. I mean, because there's well, what exactly it means to balance is a whole discussion anyway. So you can see I was doing a lot of work here, but it didn't come out. It's still not exactly what I want it to be. The witch class, we're coming up on an hour here. So I got the witch class as well. I was trying to have her work with, she's got like charm, hex, crown of madness, although actually having the crown appear or things like that, that doesn't sound right. So that's kind of a flavor thing. Enthrall, hold person, suggestion, counterspell, magic circle, except for I think it needs to be adjusted. Like what types of creatures it works on needs to be adjusted. Remove curse. And then at second level, you can cast charm person spell without once per long rest. And then I had 3 here. So Path of the Healer is here. Maybe, what did I say with Path of the Healer here? You get, maybe actually this, maybe Path of the Healer. Maybe this needs to go from Witch. So maybe what needs to happen, maybe this goes from Witch and stays with Druid, which would make the Druid the healer, and then have her be more externally focused. Although maybe some type of small ability to heal people or something should work, but maybe not have her have a specific path. And then the damsel, we can look at these in more detail maybe next week or whenever. I'll work on them some more. But the idea here was that the damsel was more about is your bard-like inspiration to the rest of the gear, the rest of the team. So like inspiring presence. So she was the one who does this. So I don't think the knight should also do this. At first level, your presence and demeanor inspire your allies. As an action, you can choose a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, minimum 1 within 30 feet of you. These creatures gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. Once you use this feature, you must complete a short or long rest before you can use it again. So I like her being able to do that. I can understand the knight also being able to do that, but I like her. It seems like something that goes along with being a damsel. This is the damsel of the Blood Royal. They're a member of a quasi-religious order that promotes the virtues of knighthood. So that works. Virtuous teaching at second level. Your knowledge of chivalry and virtues allows you to guide others on their personal growth. During a long rest, you can choose one creature to teach. The creature gains one of the following benefits, which lasts until the next long rest. So I think this is kind of like how the druid's ability also needs to work. Advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Advantage on charisma persuasion checks. Advantage on wisdom insight checks. Now, see here again, it also seems like now she could be a healer as well, but maybe we should go protector and inspirer. Ability score improvement. Damsel's guidance. You can emit a calming aura that helps your allies recover from their wounds. So anyway, we're coming up here. So, but you can see this is where I've been going with it. And so there's been a lot of work done here, but I think there still needs to be some additional work here to make sure that the abilities match with those 4 different classes, but that also like the spell casting and stuff. I don't think it's gonna be perfect because, like I said, this is a 5th edition thing anyway, and people who are playing 5th edition are expecting certain things, but also that carries a sufficient amount of the feel of Rabivania. Okay, but let me just show you this before we wrap up. So just to see where I was. Yeah, it's this over here. I had this, I put this over here in pages. And I was just trying to lay out, okay, well, actually, I meant to open that up. So over here, like just trying to figure out my layout over here. So this is a 6x9 page. I'm looking at top margins of 0.5. I see. I want to standardize this across all of them. So I don't want to mess with the font stuff like that. That way, that once I come up with a good one, a good setup for formatting, I want it to be consistent across all of the world primers. So at the moment, I'm going, okay, this is 6x9, top margins of a half an inch, inside and outside margins of 0.75 inches. It would be great if I didn't have to set this up differently for print and just do this once. Because you can do in this facing pages. I mean, we could get more sophisticated and go over to like InDesign layout software. But you can do facing pages here to make sure there's a little bit more of the inside. But on the other hand, on a book like this, the way that this is bound and stuff, you're not losing a whole lot of material in the gutter anyway. So I don't think that's going to end up being a big issue. I've got, took some inspiration from Nave actually, and was trying out this crimson text font. I actually think that looks pretty good. 12 point. 6 points after the paragraph to get kind of like, I mean, I think that's a pretty good page. I think that's a pretty good page as far as its look. There, it's dense as far as the text goes, because I want there to be, I mean, I want these books to have a lot of information on them. And I was just kind of playing around with this. But as you can see, I just scraped a few days ago all of the text from that Scrivener document and put it over here, and I got 70 pages. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not perfectly laid out. Like the spell list, like we were just looking at right now, that's just down. So, of course, that can be adjusted. I've got some additional space in here. So there's a lot of work that have to do with layout. But when I put all this in here and I put these specifications, I was like, oh, my God, this is only supposed to be a 48-page book, and I'm already up to 70 pages. So, like I said, not optimally laid out. But there's no art in here. There are no maps in the Gazetteer. There's nothing like that. This is just the text that goes in, and it's at 70 pages. So I've also got to think about how to edit this down in order to get this into what I'm trying to do as far as a product goes. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do on the editing side of things. I got to get those character classes right. And then, like I said, make sure that I'm perfectly happy with all the words. But I realized that, see, this says that I've got 15,905 words. And I was expecting to just have 12,500 words. That was my goal, 12,500 words. But for some reason, now at this moment, I have 15,905 words in there. So I guess what that means is that those character classes took up a lot more words. And I should have thought about that. That took up a lot more words than I was expecting. And then also I added information on equipment. Now, there's also obviously other words in there as well that have ballooned. Probably the NPC stat block write-ups took up more space than I was expecting. So I got a lot more words than I was expecting to have. So that's where I stand. So getting closer, then we'll go on to another world after this, but not quite ready yet. Zero Theory says, in the stories you imagine for this world, does it include all the classes, or would you want to limit it to a more world feel select few? I would want, like in an expanded book, I would add more. Like if it's going to be a 5th edition book, I would add more. Like I think that especially you could have barbarians especially for like the raccoons, like that seems to fit. Like as far as we're talking about our 5th edition classes, the rogues, definitely we should have. Rogues can be in there. I've got like rogue like thief characters in the story, so that works. Rangers also there are, so I would expect that there could be rangers. There are paladins, but they're more like Charlemagne's paladins. They're not like the holy warrior type of paladins, and so it would probably make more sense if you had paladin as okay, but you got to go through and being a knight in order to become a paladin. So have to make that adjustment. And like I said, maybe that's something that is made in a longer book anyway. Progression between like squire to knight and different stages of your knight's life, and to potentially becoming like a paladin of one of the orders or something like that, if that's the direction that you were going to go. But Ranger, I also think of Rangers being in there. What other classes are we missing? So Fighter would be in there, because we've got to have just all of your catch-all category for all the other types of infantry and things like that are not actual knights. So Fighters would be in there. Cleric of some kind would be in there, because the Mirite religion has clerics. So I would probably expect that some type of cleric would also be in there. Now, that one's going to have to be adjusted as well. For a 5th edition game to deal with magic appropriately. But a cleric would be like the Mirite clerics would probably have that. Wizard and sorcerer probably not so much, because that's sort of being that's being kind of subsumed by the druid. That's what's happening with the druid here. So, okay, so that's that. So I do want to look at AD&D psionics, and I was seeing that Stargate is here. Stargate has done some work on 5th edition psionics. So one of the things that we're going to do soon, thinking about, like I was saying that we probably need to expand the kinds of topics that we cover on the Morning Grind. But psionics is still one of them that I want to cover. and then take a look at what Stargate did to bring psionics into 5th edition. We should probably take a look at Enchantress soon, but then maybe Friday we take a look at the further discussion on the fall. So that's basically what's coming up. Sable Phoenix says 5e really isn't the best for a low magic setting. It's not. It's not. Thought of maybe using Shadow Dark for this instead. Yeah, well, I thought that maybe one of the things that we should do is try to create an OSR version. Like, wouldn't that be fun? Like an OSR version or Shadow Dark version of that. I thought about that. Zero Theory says, oh, then maybe splash the druid with some Sork spells. That might work. So maybe that's what I need to do if we're talking about readjusting this list and like, oh, for the balance reasons, okay, you've taken away too much from the druid. The druid needs a few more. Maybe the sorcerer list. Well, what I would maybe look at the wizard list as well for the druid. And are there things that I'm expecting that the druids would do that would be more wizard-like? And then take a look at the sorcerer list, and maybe some things from the sorcerer list could go, some of them over to the witch and some of them over to the druid. Maybe that's what I need to look at. Because I'm definitely thinking of like, did anybody read Bernard Cornwell's series about King Arthur? And you've got Merlin the druid in there. So he's a druid, but he's he's Merlin, right? So that's the kind of the way that I think of the druidic order in this. So they're the wizards of the kind of place of the place. Yeah, actually, so I think that maybe what we do later is do just a completely OSR approach to it. That was my original idea. Is that was one of the advantages of doing the smaller books. And so people would just, you have to say that, okay, the lore is the same. What we're doing is the same, but the rules would be different depending on whether we're doing a 5th edition game, whether we're doing a Pathfinder game, or we're doing some other type of game. We're swapping out the rules. So and then one of them could ultimately become like the canonical version. But on the other hand, I don't really care so much what rule sets you play with, because as we've talked about before, like what particular rule set is being played with at the table is one of the least important things to me. It's more about friends. It's about, the friends you're having a good time with at the table. And if they all want to play, some people are like, I would never play that particular rule set. Other people, and I think a lot of people like this are in the comments, oh, well, I might not pick that up, but hey, if I have a bunch of friends who are trying to, want to run a game for the afternoon and they really want to try out this rule set, well, what am I going to do? Not play with my friends? No, definitely. I'd play with my friends. So like the friends are there. You're having a good time. There's the game master giving you a good story. What rule set is kind of down that list? So if people just love 5th edition and they want to play in Rabivania, or they want to play in Unspeakable Cults, or they want to play in Theophany, even if it doesn't exactly fit that rule set, even if it doesn't exactly fit the world, well, fine. Just run with it, have a good time. So then later, like I said, maybe the Fated Edge one would be like the canonical idea about like, how does this world actually work? So that's just my approach here, because like I said, in the past, that is inspired by the fact that when we were working on the Journey to the Tree of Sorrows RPG, which has never gotten published, but was a major effort that I wrote with David in the Cthulhu mythos. I mean, that book that we wrote for that was something probably about like this. I mean, that thing was a major thing. Now, one of the things that stopped it from getting published was that the art just couldn't get done for it. I was writing it. David was doing the art. And we were only going to do that once. We were only going to put out, one book for that. So we had to make a call on what type of rule set it was going to use, and then we just had to use that. And in that case, since it was David's world, he made the call to do 5th edition, even though I'm not sure that 5th edition is perfect for Cthulhu Mythos stuff anyway. It can work. Like I said, it can work. It's fine. It can work, but I don't think it's necessarily perfect for that. But on the other hand, people know that rule set. And so from a commercial standpoint, you put that out. But here, since we're doing smaller books, I think why not just go ahead and use a variety of different rule sets, which does seem like something that I see a lot more people doing. My friend Lou Anders, I still want to have Lou back on Table Talk, because he's got some fantastic theories on story as well that I want to talk to him about. But Lou has been working on, he did go to town with his world book. This is he went to town. I mean, that is for your first run out with his world book. I mean, that is a serious book right there. Then that was 5th edition. But I think he is also working on converting this whole book to Pathfinder. And he also has permission. You have to get permission to do Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds will let you do Savage Worlds books, but it does not have an open license because they're very particular about the look of stuff that you put out under Savage Worlds. So he's putting out Thrones and Bones under multiple rule sets. So my theory would be to do the same thing, have multiple worlds, each with multiple rule sets, figure out which ones people like. And hey, if Pathfinder 2nd edition or 5th edition or whatever it is happens to be the most popular rule set, and hey, maybe it doesn't perfectly fit the feel of the world or the mechanics of the magic or something like that, but hey, if people are having fun with it, then hey, let's just go. That's fine. Yeah, Stargate Mind. Oh, Stargate Mind is still here. The Sonics I would have work with any RPG using the common 6 attributes. I suppose there are no spell slots or PSPs. Okay, so what day do we want to do that? If we do Enchantress tomorrow, if we do, maybe that's a Saturday thing. Maybe Psionics would be Saturday. I need to actually make up my thumbnails for the morning grind. Zero Theory says, no, I would still steer clear of anything 5e related for Cthulhu. Now the OSR stuff, I bet you could do some OSR stuff. And of course, it depends as well. So, what I want to do, so if I do Cthulhu, it's going to be under the Unspeakable Cults kind of stuff, the Unspeakable Cults name. But that's not necessarily, I'm not doing 1920s Investigators. We didn't do 1920s Investigators when we did Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. And today I wouldn't do like 1920s Investigators either. Like I certainly not do that for Cthulhu. But like Journey to the Tree of Sorrows, we were doing Viking stuff. Sable Phoenix says, Savage World is so great. It's a one-size-fits-all system that really does seem to be one-size-fits-all. Most universal RPG systems don't quite pull that off. And like I said, well, I've got the Pathfinder. That's another thing we should do. Like I said, there's still a lot of RPG stuff to talk about, even though I think maybe at least like once or twice a week we need to expand. Like AI stuff. I think we should talk about some AI stuff as well. But I've got the Pathfinder Savage Worlds book over there. And I need to look at that. So we need to look at that one too. Maybe that should be like Sunday. I don't know. I'll think about it. Okay, everybody, I've got to go. I've really enjoyed this conversation. So that's where we are. We didn't get to look at the world stats. And when I was thinking about the world stats, I was talking about like views on YouTube videos, the number of people who are subscribed to different YouTube channels about the worlds, how many people are on the Instagram accounts for the different worlds, things like that. I think we should document that. And I think it'd be fun to document how that goes. So that's what I was thinking of. We didn't quite have time to do that today, so that's fine. I should probably document some of that in advance. Then we just take a look at it here because I think that would be fun to talk about. So, all right. I hope that everybody has had a fantastic time. This is Wednesday. Have a extremely productive day. I hope that you have a creative day. Do both of all of that. And until I see you in the morning, everybody grind on.